What are your names?
Niall, Keogh, Doyle.
And men, where are you from?
I'm from Monaghan.
I'm from Dublin originally, went farming down in Kildare, and I've always had a house here, house in Rosslare since the 50s, so I'm down there permanently now.
And do you both keep bees?
We do, yeah.
Yeah, we do indeed.
Yeah.
When did you get into bees?
I got into bees when I was 10 years of age, and I'm 82 now, and I haven't that length.
Yeah, well, my mother had them before me, so I only started taking them seriously about 50 years ago. I did a beekeeper's course, and I learned what I'd been trying to do for years, so that put me on the right track. So, yeah, fascinating subject.
And
fascinating.
You started when you were
10 years of age.
And where did you get the interest in 10-year-old?
Well, I used to go to an old farmer down beside me, mile and a half away from me. A man, his name was Patrick Roach, and I used to drive a tractor for him. He was a hardy at the time. I used to drive this tractor for him, and he was a beekeeper, and he had, I think, about 60 stocks at the time. Well, between skips and hives and boxes and everything else, because at that time the war was just over, and the country now wasn't very well off, I might as well tell you. Money was a very scarce thing, you see. Like, we were all doing things to get a few bob, picking blackberries and going around and doing things like that to see where we get going. That was it, you know.
And the bees were a way to...
The bees were money.
Money.
At the time, the bees paid debts, that's the way. With a lot of people around me now, because where I lived in Monaghan, there was a good few beekeepers. But now that time it was skips. They were making the straw skips that time, and you used to have to smother the bee to get the honey now. And I learned something about that as well. I went down to a man in Adamstown to get a part for an old car sometime, I don't know, 50 years ago or more maybe, and this man came out with a smoker. And I said to him today, "You're working in bees?" "I am," he says. And I said, "What are you doing?" "I'm driving bees one skip to another." I never heard of it, you see. I said, "Are you driving them?" "Yes," he says. And I said, "I'm interested in that now." I said, "Because I have bees, but I haven't skips now. I only have that time we used to use butter boxes. And the butter box was a sort of a hive, like. And we extended the top of it, and then we put crates on the top of them, bored holes to the top of them. There was all types of things done that way at that time, you know. And I said to this man, "I'm interested in this bit." So he brought me into his garden, and he had a skip. He had one skip that was full of combs, turned upside down, and he had another skip that had been painted with honey inside. And he turned that down on that skip, and he just put a couple of little pins through it to hold in place, and he tapped the bottom skip like that with his hands. And I could hear the hum. He tapped and tapped and tapped and tapped, and I was waiting to see what the results were, because I thought one time he'd be going with the smoker to drive him up. But he never used no smoker. Just tapped and tapped and tapped, and eventually he called me over, and he turned up the skip that was on top, and was the way somebody was just shaking a swarm of bees into it. And I never seen that before, and I never heard anybody doing it. And so I said, "There you are." Now I said to him today, "What do you do with the straggler bees that's left in the combs?" Because the combs are all hanging down in the hive, the one they had turned upside down. He said, "Bring that over to the opposite side of the garden and set it up there," he said, "and put your skip where the new skip or the old skip was. And when they come out the next day, instead of them going back to that, they go back to the new skip." And that's the way he worked.
And how was it different up in Dublin where you were reared?
Well, we had more or less conventional. My mother had conventional hives. All we ever had was trouble. She couldn't control the swarming, and the neighbours, they had some sense of humour. That swarms in their garden, they'd swarm here, there and yonder. But that was basically what she was doing, just keeping the hives there. But We never got an awful lot of production out of it, but they were great for the pollination. We kept a lot of apple trees, of course, and all kinds of fruit trees, but that was their main function. But the thing has changed now dramatically. The modern ways of doing things. Now, I don't know if they're any better, but they're certainly easier to look after nowadays with the help you can get from the all the videos and everything else. But I see now the one thing we're hoping we don't get any more nasty little hornets coming into our country. They're in England at the moment, and that's another problem waiting to happen here. Hopefully, I hope we don't get a complete invasion from them anyway. The hornets were bad enough with the varroa.
And what did you keep your bees for? Was it for money?
No, well, it was a hobby. It wasn't really for money. Starting out, it wasn't anyway. But then I got a few people who wanted to be buying honey off me and everything else. And basically, it's only a hobby with me in that sense, you know.
And yourself?
Farming changed, you see. In my area, farms, there could be only 50 acres in them, there could be 70 acres in them, but they were all small fields, all types of ditches and plants.
Did changes in farming affect beekeeping?
Did, in a big way, because they done away with all the ditches that was on the farms, the smaller farms, and took down all the hedges that was on those ditches, and now the white thorn is an early variety of pollen for bees, you see, and that's gone. And it's gone late now as well this year. But no, the whole thing is changing all along. And you see, we have crops sowed now that we never had. What this man is talking about was the oilseed rape now is coming in, you see, and that's not a good one for honeybees. They're using sprays on now to kill the beetles on, and I think it's wiping out the honeybees as well, you know.
Yeah, the bees are disorientated. It goes in, and they don't know where they're going after getting onto the plants. They can't find their way back to the hive a lot of the time.
Yeah,
it's complicated now with the modern methods of farming.
Yeah.
Have you seen that? The bees being confused going back to the hive?
I can't say, I wouldn't be with the bees enough now to know that they were confused, but bees will go out and won't come back. That's what I know.
Oh, no doubt about that.
Leave the hive, but the same amount of bees mightn't be coming back. And if you could start in the spring with a good strong stock of bees, and by this time, by May, you could discover that the bees have gone down in quantity, you see.
Yeah.
Whatever is wiping them out, we don't know, you know.
And what did the bees start feeding off first now these days?
Well, you see, we lost the normally start with the different trees. I sowed trees, and I sowed sycamore, the flowering currant, as we call it. That one is an early variety for honeybees. Sycamore and
The Sally.
and there was a whole load of those trees. They're all gone now, this year, you know. And there's farming has gone bigger fields, and now a fella can drive in the gate now and go 90 acres with whatever, you see, and all that we had when I started.
Was clover big when you were younger?
Clover. Oh, clover was the main supply at one time. Yeah, you always knew by your bees when they were on clover, because the honey was always white. Now this man probably tell you the same thing.
Yeah.
And when you would, now I only dealt in the section, but I didn't deal in the bar frame because I hadn't time. See, I was working in the foundry for 7 years, and you'd ride to there in the morning, and you could ride home in the evening, and then you'd have to get ready for whatever you were going to deal with your bees. And I'd make up an empty crate, foundation and the usual, set up in the crate, and I'd put on the bees that night, or two crates. And that's the way I worked, you see, because I hadn't the time. But now anyone at home could use the bar frame, and they have to run the honey. Take the caps off and run the honey and put it back in again, you see.
And how about yourself? Was your practice the same up in Dublin?
No, we were on bar frames, but here in Wexfordshire, they had a huge export business in the section honey, huge. And I've seen I can't remember the figures now, but there was a big export business here. Now I've never used the sections now. I've never tried it. I should, but very popular with people, of course, too. They like to put the whole section onto the table.
That's right.
And
yeah.
use your spoon.
Yeah.
You
You
know.
like and put it on your bread.
Put it on your bread. Put it
yeah.
on your,
Put it on your bread. You see.
yeah.
Yeah.
Were the sections not popular in Dublin then?
Well, they were, but we didn't use them ourselves now. But I mean, I know now, on the continent now, for instance, a lot of the hotels would have it set up over the table at breakfast time, and it's dripping away there. You could you could lure you into you. Wouldn't help, you know, if you have diabetes or something. But it's once you start eating the blessed stuff, you won't stop.
No, that's
Yeah.
the thing.
Do you like honey yourselves?
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I like it.
I lick my fingers. That's
yeah,
the way it is
yeah,
after working
yeah,
there. But I
yeah.
wouldn't. I
Yeah.
might bring in a section of honey and.
Yeah. I'd have it with my
and
porridge every morning
have
anyway.
it, yeah, but people love it. You
Yeah,
see, but-
yeah, they do.
Yeah.
They do.
Now, what I found about it in my time, I don't know whether it happened with this man or not, honey was used for cures. And honey, there was always the women around living in an area, and people went home when they had trouble with hay fever, sore throats, and ulcers on their legs.
Yeah,
And the honey was used for that particular
yeah.
cure. Now, there's an antibiotic in the honey, you see. And now, in fact, I cured an old woman myself now, belonged to a relation of mine, only there about 2 years. She died 2 years ago. And she had trouble with ulcers on the legs, breaking out. And I brought her the honey, and we got around the nurse to bandage her up. And we got around the nurse to bandage her up with the honey. And she was telling me after a few years that I said to her, say, Margot, how did you get on with the legs? And she said, that's the size of an ulcer now. But she was massive.
Yeah.
Was massive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the same with, there was people around me, old people, old women especially, and they used the honey for sore throats and hay fever. People now, young people I haven't seen anybody with hay fever now for a long time. But that time it was hay fever, you see.
How do you use the honey for hay fever?
You have to take it.
Just take it.
But the honey has to be from the area where that person is living.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
in ancient times, back in the Egyptian times, they found it in the pyramids, and they've been there for hundreds of years. And it was good then, as it is, you know, it was perfect.
Yeah, honey never go bad.
But if you're out at a beehive on a summer's evening, and you hear the noise, with maybe 40, 50,000 bees with their wings drying the honey,
That's right, yeah.
and they won't seal it with the wax until it's perfect. And when they seal it with the wax, it'll last for decades.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And you know, when we come now to extracting the honey, we scrape off the wax, then we put it in the extractor and we spin them, and the honey's fired out. And that's how we do it. But the bees, yeah, they're the best judges of the conditioning of the honey. They get it down to a lovely temperature, or down to a moisture content to their liking before they'll seal it.
Well, years ago.
Yeah, and I see some of the hospitals now have bandaging, and it's coming from an English company, and the bandaging is impregnated with the honey. And they're using it now. You know, it's authorized with the medical boys.
Yeah.
It draws out the moisture out of the old ulcers and things.
Matt, you said the honey was used for cures and burns.
Yeah, cures now for, and hay fever is, I'm trying to go back now to my memory, because my memory's gone bad now, I might as well tell you, but hay fever was one of them. People used to come to me for honey, and I give them a section or two, especially not full filled ones. I give them to them for nothing, because they'd have maybe children and they're running out the eyes with the hay fever and a sort of runny nose, you see. But when they got the honey then, cured all that. But the same with the ulcers now. The ulcers, I seen it myself with the ulcers. You see that when you had the bandage and put the honey on and put on, you see that whatever was in there's an antibiotic in the honey, seemingly that will cure wounds or burns or various things like that. You know.
Do you ever see anyone making a drink with the honey?
I did, yeah.
The mead.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
The mead.
That's it. No,
Sure, I mean, that's
yeah.
what was used by the monks.
Yeah.
I would say it was the original alcoholic drink.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And if you're down Bunratty Castle, or as I was there now for some of these functions, they can make it, from my mind, it's too sweet. What we had down there wouldn't be, you know, but you can get a very nice drink if it's not too sweet.
What have you seen?
With drinks, I just seen people taking it for sore throats. That's what I seen it being used for.
Do you ever see lads making it with poaching or like that, mixing it with
Now, there was various things. Now, I'm trying to think myself now at the moment. There was what, honey and lemon was used, and there was a few things like that mixed up in it. But these were all women now that would be, in my time, 80 years of age, and the people used to come to them with troubles instead of going to a doctor. And they'd go out, she'd make up this bottle, a brew, we didn't know what it was, and off to go and drink it every morning and evening, whatever it was. But that was the way it was done that time.
What was the woman's name?
Martha was her name, yes.
Money Gear, was she?
Yes, money, a woman, yeah. She used to cure the ulcers, and she used to cure the sore throats if you had the sore throats and things like that. She'd go to her, and she'd give you make up the bottle, and she'd tell you to be home with you and take a sup out every night or morning. And it worked anyway at that time, you see.
You were talking earlier on about extracting the honey. Do you remember years ago, did people have to make up their own extractors?
Yeah, I have one. I made up one myself. Yeah, for the whole the bar frames, you see, put the bar frame into it. As this man was saying to me, you see, when I only use the bars on and off if I had time, but what we do is use a hot knife. Take out your bar when it's full, capped off, and you use a hot knife. I used to boil a knife in a saucepan of hot water, and use the knife then to cut the caps off it, and then we put it into the extractor and spin it, you see, and I come down into the bottom of the extractor.
What was the extractor made of? Was it an old milk churn?
Well, I know I made a stainless steel one, but to buy him that time now was just costing money. I tell you that.
How about you? Did you have a homemade one, or did you buy one?
No, I had one here with the group. We have a number of extractors here, and we used to move it from one member to another member. Then I bought my own. Extractor then. I have one at home, stainless steel.
But you made your
I made my one, but at that time, you see, we made our own hives.
No, I made mine too.
Yeah, and we had to do it like that because at that time, I'm going back now to the middle 90s. The war was just over, and Ireland there wasn't money starting in Ireland at that time.
The mid 1940s.
Yeah, mid 1940s, and my mother we had a shop in the village, and the butter box, that time butter used to come in a tapered box, and a lot of beekeepers used to go for this box because when it was open, the top taken off, when you turned it upside down, that was a hive.
Yeah.
And but now to get the honey out of it was you had to smother the bee, and no, I didn't know at that time until I met this man in Adamstown that he showed me how to drive the bees from one box to the other.
Yeah. So you smothered the queen bee, all the bees?
All the bees, yeah.
Sulphur, they use sulphur. You utilize a fire.
That's right, that's exactly it.
Put sulphur in the fire, and the fumes
go up and kill the bee. Yeah.
Yeah.
Brimstone, I think, was that?
Yeah.
Brimstone, yeah.
But then again, you see, in those days too, they'd no other means of getting the honey out.
No,
they'd no other means.
No way of getting it out.
No means.
But they wouldn't be dealing with the same amount of honey as what we were dealing with in the 60s. In the 1960s, I could have 40 crates of bees. I could have 40 crates of honey, 21 sections in each crate, you see.
Did shivers buy it?
No, I'll tell you who bought it off. Well, I bought the foundation and the sections of the old co-op in Enniscorthy. And they sent me a letter one day saying if I bring in the honey to them, there was a crowd by the name of Ronans. They were seed merchants in Dublin. And they come down for a day or 2 days. And they bought the honey all around us off wild beekeepers. And you see people going in with crates and crates and in Hassan cars, in ordinary cars and everywhere to Ronan would right out to shake that evening and you had a bit of money in your pocket. That's it, that was the way it was.
That was the co-op in Enniscorthy?
In the old co-op in Enniscorthy, the old co-op now.
Where was that now?
That was down in Derby, in Enniscorthy. And that's where they came in and we brought them in the honey. And they went through, now they graded the sections. There were sections that completely full, I think you got 2 shilling or 2.6 for it. And there were sections then that wasn't as full, you got 2 shillings. They graded the different grades of honey. But they took a lot of honey, different even.
Where did the Wexford honey go to? Was it
I don't know, I went to Dublin that time.
Was it exported, do you think?
I'd say it was, yeah. I'd say it was, yeah.
And your honey in Dublin, was that just for home use?
Oh, just for home use, yeah. But the honey here, I mean, we had a huge, from Wexford in later years, you had a huge export trade to England for honey. All in the sections. It was all the sections, yeah. But also now, if you went to buy a section now, I saw them there at 18, 19 euro for one section.
I said that, yeah.
And
yeah.
you get, it's, that's what they're getting for it now,
Yeah, they're getting even 20 euros a section now, I think, for honey, you see.
Yeah.
And where would you get it in Wexford? Miley, Doyle and Gore used to have it, didn't they?
That's right, Miley was selling sections.
Yeah.
Used to get it from him.
Yeah, they get it from him, but I think he was doing it. He was charging about 20 euros. The last person that told me that was looking for sections now, I think it was about 20 euros because people came to me and I just give them sections, like just friends of mine. And you just give them maybe half a dozen sections or whatever it was because I wasn't exporting at the time. I wasn't.
And would you know people like, say, for example, the late Jim Dunn in Owlert or Ned Kavanagh in Kilmuckridge, or would you know them men?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would have all known beekeepers. See. Yeah. Jimmy Kavanagh, sawmills there in Gorey. Yeah, he did a lot of bees, you see. But all the men are gone, you see. That's the problem now.
And you both men keep bees to this day?
Oh yeah.
I do, yeah. I keep them.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
I might like this man. I might keep them for pollinating. Now I have the remainders at my grandparents' place. It was a farm, and I have that part of it. And I have the bees in it. I have a thatched house in it. I keep the bees in it, but I'm not working the bees now because I got prostate trouble 2-3 years ago, and it was piped up, and I hadn't come for doing anything. So, but. No, that's what.
I've cut down the numbers too.
Yeah.
Well, I'm 88 now. It's time to cut down something.
God, it's a few years on me.
It's time to cut down something.
Yeah.
I was well aware. I was carrying beehives across fields and everything else, and I knew one of these days I was going to stick my foot in a rabbit hole, and I get the bees wrapped around me neck. So I decided now we'll abandon ship before we have an accident.
And what attracts you to the bees, man?
Oh, they're a fascinating creature,
Yeah.
and you'll never, ever have all the answers.
No.
In fact, talking to another beekeeper, he'd been at them since he was a young man, he's now well in his 70s. And only the other day he came across something in the hives that he'd never experienced before. You learn something with them every day of the week.
You do, yeah.
And you think you have them mastered.
You won't have master,
Thank
no.
God you won't.
No.
You will not, but I mean, they're a fascinating subject. And then we're into an era now that people have become very conscious of bees and the pollination aspect of it. Now, we had a talk here from a Wexford man who's living out in Canada and working for a firm out there, and they have 20,000 hives. And they move them around all the crops. They have lorries packed with beehives.
Yeah.
And they don't even take them off the lorry. They let them work from the lorry. And they go from one area to another.
Same in America, sure.
Yeah.
In America now, beekeeping in America is a big business.
They've killed everything with sprays, so they have to bring in for pollination purposes. They've no other means. They won't get a crop.
Crops now.
They won't get a crop.
No,
they don't.
won't get a crop, no.
So, you know, I mean, I know
But,
it's sad in many ways, but and at one time now, he was telling us that they used to kill all their bees at the end of the year because in Canada they had such a long winter. They used to kill all their bees, and then in the spring they'd buy in the nucleus from across the border. But now that's been stopped because it's, you know.
Yeah. But back to yourselves.
Yeah.
Do you feed your bees over the winter?
Well, what I would do was, when I came into the hive, I always made the body box a bit bigger than I take the weight, you see. And once you got that full, your bees have a fair chance of surviving. I did feed bees. I have about 30 feeders now at the moment standing at home in the shed. But I always found that the bee that was able to live on his own honey was a better bee somewhere than the one was fed. Now this man probably found the same thing.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I know when you take off your crates or your bar frames that you're extracting and put down this feeder on it and fill it. Now the feeder that I was using was the round feeder, and you took the lid up and you feed it, and the bee came up to the centre of it, and he brought down the honey, and he brought down the syrup, and he made honey of it for his winter, you see. But I always found that bees live better and work better on their own honey than what you feed them. But people feed them and keep them alive, you see.
Yeah, well, that's the thing now, Matt. I've got a couple of people now, I won't call them customers, they're friends of mine, but they get honey off me on a fairly regular basis. And two of them have bad old cancer.
Yeah.
And the stipulation from their doctor is honey by all means, but make sure the bees are not being fed with sugar.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know exactly why, but you know, so I mean, when they're getting my honey, it's in the autumn of the year, and they certainly weren't fed any sugar during the summer. So I mean, that's
Right.
my end of it put right.
That was pure honey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, fair enough, when I take off the honey, I would give them a certain amount of sugar in water mixed for the
syrup.
winter. But
Syrup.
that was the stipulation from both their doctors. So, you know, and, when they've had the bad old chemo, apparently they find honey very acceptable to their system. You know, they just take a spoonful of it when they want it, you know.
I know that a lot of people, maybe 20 years ago, 10 years ago, were always on with Manuka honey from New Zealand.
Manuka was there.
But there's a bit of a kickback against that now, isn't there? People are saying get your own local honey instead.
Yeah, but there's also a kickback in the sense that Manuka honey apparently comes off in a very syrupy form, and they've had to dilute it so they can handle it. Now there would be, I don't know the full story on it, but there had to be diluted with something like corn syrup or something so they would be able to bottle it, etc.
You probably know as well as what I do.
Yeah, I know.
They're going to increase the honey, the amount of
mate.
honey that they're getting. They're not going to get they're not going to get the pure honey.
Not at all.
They'll mix it to sell put it into jars and sell it.
And if we're charging a realistic price for honey, and on business-like footing, sure, nobody would want to buy it. It would be too expensive.
Yeah.
Your honey, both your honeys you make, men, is
Pure honey.
Oh yeah,
Pure honey.
Yeah, mine would have been.
You know.
This man would have been run honey, put into jars. Mine would have been in the section, the little square section.
Yeah.
And that's the way. And that was put in and sealed by the bee himself, you see.
Yeah.
Now this man would be taking it off, and he'd be running it, but it would be pure honey.
Yeah.
But now if you sell that to any of these stores, and they want to get more money out of it, they're going to mix things into it.
Oh yeah. Also there are
going to increase the amount of honey, and that's why you don't get the pure honey now.
The blenders. I mean, there are people now that just don't put it in jars or anything like that. They sell it off in buckets.
Yeah.
And it goes into the blenders.
Yeah.
And when it comes out, it's not the product that went in. It's well
not,
diluted.
No.
Do you feel that your hobby, your occupation, whatever you want to call it, is an important one in the countryside, living in Wexford?
Oh, very much so.
I'd
I mean,
say so,
very much so.
yeah, say so.
While I'm not, I wouldn't be
yeah.
I won't say well, not interested in the money. I mean, certainly I'd make enough out of it to cover my expenses and that kind of carry on.
Yeah.
But to get into it on a commercial basis now,
That's an expensive setup now.
a very expensive setup.
Setup,
And
yeah.
I don't know if you'd be monetarily rewarded for it either.
Yeah.
Because if somebody did a cost analysis as to what it cost you to produce the honey, with the equipment and everything else, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
When
know.
I started at the honeybee, I was lucky because my father was a carpenter,
Yeah.
and now that time you just couldn't go into a store and buy timber like you can now.
No.
Now you can go in and buy the timber. You mightn't get the size that you'd look for, say 10 inches by 1 inch boards, you see, but you could have to extend the board. But that time, in a place like here now, Johnstown Castle, when trees blow down in the storm, they were normally cut up with a crosscut and they were brought to a sawmill, and you sawed out the boards that you wanted by the sawman, you see. And you brought them home now and you made your hive, you see. And you made your crate as well, you see.
Yeah.
You made everything. The only thing you couldn't make at the time was bar frames because there was no electricity. Today now, any young fella can make bar frames because he'd buy a router and he'd buy a small saw bench and he can saw off his lats and route them. But in our time you couldn't do it with all hand tools, you see.
Yeah.
You know, even making the hive in my days now, and so this man a few years older than me, if he wanted to make a hive, he had to get the hand saw and saw off the boards and nail them together, you see.
Yeah.
Now you chop saw and you'd make a hive now in a few minutes.
You would, and people now used to think that you have to have cedar wood, and the only place you get cedar wood now is probably Canada or somewhere.
That's all, yeah.
And it costs a blessed fortune. But ordinary cheap deal now, even if well painted and looked after, will last for a long time.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
I tell you now, you've probably seen the same thing. They started to make the hives in sections.
Yeah.
Now, when I made the old hives, I put the floors up underneath the hive. And you see now, what I find about the modern hive that they make now, you leave it down. It's handy for to change, handy for to take it under and to bring away with you. But it rots at the joints, where the water goes in the joints, you see, and rots the hive. And the old hive now, I'd have old hives and it'd be there for, I'd say, 50 years.
Yeah.
But they were homemade hives, and probably this man found the same thing.
Yeah.
You see, because you put the floor up under the sideboards of the hive, and the outside section came down over the bottom part of the hive. You see.
Yeah.
I could listen to you two men all day, but unfortunately I don't have the time all day because there's more beekeepers I want to talk to. But I'll leave it one last question to you. Do you think the bee is important?
It is.
Oh, very.
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 Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're meant to have 100 different types of bees here in Ireland, and so the experts tell me. But they all have a function. They all have a function. And with these sprays now, I don't know where we're going to
end up
with these sprays.
Yeah.
Would you like us to go back to thinking a little bit more about nature?
I would anyway, and this man probably would too.
Yeah, I know, but the farmers won't get the production.
Farmers won't go that way.
They won't get the production from their crops if they don't use the sprays. So
see, that's the problem.
It's a sad story, but it's the world we live in now.
That's the way it's gone now.
It is, yeah. And
but
luckily people are paying more attention to things than they were.
Getting more interested in it, you see.
Yeah.
They're getting more serious.
Keeping bees now, it's become very popular and very topical.
Yeah.
You know.
But,
long may it last.
Da